Hello everyone, how are you doing today? Whatever kind of day you're having, I truly hope it's one of peace and quiet strength. Today, we're about to listen to a story that begins in the most ordinary of places, a night janitor working in a luxury hotel. But in that silence, she did something not even a full team of engineers could do. She saved a $250 million system with nothing but her mind and patience, and slowly, between lines of code, mops gliding across polished floors and silent glances in the hallway, love began to bloom. Not because one was better than the other, but because they saw the truest parts of each other. A CEO, who once thought he had the world at his fingertips, learned his most important lesson from a woman he used to think was invisible. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever done brilliant things quietly, without anyone noticing, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any heartfelt stories from Snail. Story. Leela Thompson stepped into the back lobby of the hotel like she did every night. Her navy blue uniform still carrying a faint scent of bleach, her hair neatly tied in a bun at the nape of her neck, and in her pocket, the old pair of earbuds she used to listen to programming podcasts. The night shifts started at 10 p.m. when the guests had already gone to bed, and the entire hotel was bathed in soft yellow light and the gentle hum of the air conditioner. The Blue Crescent Hotel, a chain of luxury hotels spread across California, was in the midst of testing a new AI-integrated smart booking system. The project was valued at over $250 million and was the biggest ambition yet of its CEO. Ethan Blackwell, a man known for being cold, wealthy, and never smiling. Leela didn't care about any of that. Her job was to mop floors, empty trash, and keep everything spotless before sunrise. But that night, everything changed. While cleaning the third floor, a restricted area for management, Leela noticed the door to Ethan's office was ajar. The lights inside were still on, but the room was empty. She hesitated, about to back away, when she noticed a laptop on the desk still open. The screen displayed the message: "System query failed. Loop error detected." On the desk sat a steaming cup of coffee and a thick folder. And right next to it was the access card to the basement floor, the one Ethan always kept to himself. Leela hesitated. She wasn't allowed in the room. But then her eyes fell back to the screen. Lines of code scrolled across it. Messy, chaotic, and clearly wrong. It's a simple loop error, but one that, if left unchecked, would cause the booking system to spin out of control, like a snake eating its own tail. "This is dumb," she muttered, narrowing her eyes. She didn't mean to do anything, really, but then her hand was already on the mouse. Then she typed a few commands, then quickly accessed a root function, corrected the logic condition, separated the asynchronous tasks, and hit run. The screen froze. The system stopped looping. A message appeared: "Success. Resource conflict resolved." Leela exhaled. Now that's code. She stood up, ready to leave. "But what do you think you're doing?" The voice rang out cold as a steel gate creaking open in the dead of night. Leela spun around. Ethan Blackwell was standing at the doorway, white shirt sleeves rolled up. His tie loosened after a long day, and eyes that looked like they had just caught a thief red-handed. I was just Leela stepped back, gripping her cleaning cloth tightly. "You just touched my $250 million AI booking system." Ethan walked in, glanced at the screen, then back at her. "Who do you think you are?" "I saw the error. I recognized a faulty loop, and Leela spoke quickly, her breath shaky. "Recognized an error." He gave a half smile. "You're a janitor, right? Not a programmer. Not an expert. And you fixed a bug." "Yes, I know I wasn't supposed to, but correct. You weren't." Supposed to? His voice was like stone. He walked over, sat down at the desk, and reviewed the code. Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard as he reran the system. On the screen, the control panel showed a confirmation. Load successful. No errors. He paused, silent. Lila stood frozen. She could hear her heart pounding. "You," Ethan said slowly, eyes still on the screen. "Just saved a system my team of engineers couldn't fix after 2 weeks." Lila bit her lip. "I only did what felt right." What felt right? He turned to look at her, gray eyes now filled with surprise and something else hard to define. "You can call security. I'll leave. I know I crossed the line," she said, backing toward the door. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "I'm not calling security." Lila's eyes widened. "Not because I trust you," he said slowly, "but because I want to know. Who are you really?" "Lila Thompson." She swallowed hard. "Night janitor. And someone who once dreamed of studying programming." Ethan sat in silence. His fingers tapped the desk lightly. Lila could feel the assessment in his gaze. Not disdain, but calculation. "Where did you study?" he asked. "The city library. Section JKL, and borrowed public Wi-Fi. Basic Python. System architecture, data security." "Ah, and that's enough," he cut her off. But his tone was less icy now. They looked at each other. Silence. Long, then Ethan said, "I should fire you. I know. But I won't." "Not yet." "Why?" Ethan turned back to the screen at the corrected code. "Because I hate admitting it." "But you just saved my company from a technical nightmare." Lila exhaled, but only partly. "But remember, you are not to touch anything in this system again without permission." Ethan stood and stepped closer. "Understood? Understood." He was so close, Lila could smell the minty scent of his. Cologne, cold, clean, distant. "And one more thing," he said softly. "If this is some kind of act, you'll regret it." "It's not an act," Lila replied, her gaze steady, unwavering. Ethan looked at her again, then gave a small nod. "Get out." Lila stepped out of the room, closed the door behind her, her heart still trembling. But deep inside, something had started to bloom. A turning point. An unexpected collision. In the dim hallway, she let out a quiet chuckle to herself. Well, not everyone gets to mop floors and save a corporation in the same night. Lila returned to the staff break room with a strange feeling in her chest. She still didn't quite understand what had just happened. Part of her felt relieved she hadn't been fired. But another part of her was on fire because of that look. Ethan Blackwell's look, half suspicion, half recognition. As if he stood on a knife's edge, either beginning to believe in her, or quietly planning to dissect her like some foreign virus that had just infiltrated his system. She sat down on the bench, peeled off her gloves, opened a cheap bottle of water, and tapped her phone screen. 1:48 a.m. A text from her younger brother. "Sis, could you send a little more for rent tomorrow? I got docked pay for taking the makeup exam day off." Lila sighed, her eyes stinging. She typed back quickly. "Okay, I'll figure it out." 3 years ago, Lila Thompson was a third-year cybersecurity major at Cal State University. She once dreamed of working for the NSA or some startup in Silicon Valley. She had earned a STEM scholarship for women of color and had even been praised by her professor as the future of tech. Then came a cold, rainy night that shattered everything. Her parents were killed in a car crash on their way home from a late shift. The brakes had failed. Both were gone on the spot. Lila and Jamie, her brother, 7 years younger, were orphaned. The boy was in 8th grade, his curly hair uncut. He kept asking for days. "Are Mom and Dad coming back tonight?" Lila requested a leave of absence from school. At first, she thought she'd only take 1 semester off. But then the government. Support came in late, medical bills piled up, and Jamie needed someone to care for him. Lila did anything she could, waiting tables, working retail, even considered leaving the city. Then she saw a flyer hiring for a night shift janitor at the Blue Crescent Hotel. Fewer people during the night, steady pay, and most importantly, after 10 p.m. The hotel was so quiet she could study again. Since then, Lila had lived 2 lives. By day, she was the sister who handled the electric bill, tuition fees, and hunted for discounted groceries across supermarkets. By night, while the hotel drifted into silence and the scent of floor wax filled the air, she wore her earbuds and listened to videos from Free Code Camp, from anonymous professors teaching algorithms. She borrowed old books from the library, photographed each page, and read them during her breaks. She had taught herself to pick up the broken pieces of her education. Alone, no teachers, no classes, no friends. Every time she fixed a tough line of code, she'd reward herself with a cup of hot cocoa. Cheap, but it warmed something inside her. That night, after her run-in with Ethan, Lila couldn't focus. She kept scrubbing floors, while replaying that look in her mind. And that question? Who do you think you are? That question she had asked herself before. Many times, a janitor, a college dropout, an orphan with no connections, a smart woman no one could see. She used to think she just had to accept that. But when she saw that $250 million code loop failing because of such a basic error, she realized maybe it wasn't that she lacked skill. Maybe she'd just never been seen. The next morning, after finishing her shift, Lila stopped by a small grocery store and picked up some breakfast to bring home. She didn't have much time. Jamie had to be woken up for school. When she entered the tiny apartment they rented on the edge of town, she found her brother still asleep, curled up on the couch with school books scattered around him. Lila leaned over to tuck a blanket around him, smiling softly. That boy, he was the reason she kept going. I picked up an extra weekend shift, she whispered, as if reassuring herself. You just focus on doing well in school. I'll handle the rest. 3 days later, at exactly 2 a.m., Lila received a message from the hotel administration. Mr. Ethan Blackwell requests your presence at the 3rd floor office after tonight's shift. Urgent, no reason provided. She stared at the message. Her heart raced. Crap, she whispered. Guess this time I'm really getting fired. Lila stood silently outside Ethan's 3rd floor office door. The message had said urgent, but when she pressed the buzzer, no one answered. She hesitated, then gently pushed the door open. It creaked open. The room was empty. Again, everything was just like before, immaculate, cold, spotless. On the desk was the same familiar laptop, but this time the screen displayed an Excel spreadsheet and one clear error message, #ref. Circular reference detected. Lila frowned. An error far too simple, almost as if someone had left it there on purpose. She glanced around. Still no one. She cautiously stepped forward and scanned through the data. The error was caused by an internal circular formula. Easy fix. Too easy. A strange feeling washed over her. She wasn't sure if this was a trap or a test, but for some reason she pulled open a drawer and found a sticky note. And this time, instead of silently correcting the mistake like before, she wrote something down. Excel is a lot like life. If you keep referencing only yourself and never look beyond, you're bound to error eventually. She stuck the note onto the screen, fixed the formula, and left. The next morning, Ethan sat at his desk, eyes locked on the now perfectly functional spreadsheet. But what caught his attention longer than the screen was the pale yellow sticky note. LT, no last name, no full signature, but he knew it was her. He read the message again, then chuckled softly, briefly, a rare expression on a face usually carved from stone. "You've got some nerve," he murmured. And just like that, the game began. Over the next week, every night at 2 a.m., the exact time Leela usually cleaned the third floor, a new accidental error would appear in Ethan's office, a Python file with a missing loop termination condition A. PHP script with an undefined variable, a PowerPoint slide with distorted image proportions, a financial plan missing the entire month of August, and every time, Leela fixed it. But she didn't just fix them, she left notes. Like in code, it's usually not the big bugs that crash the system, it's the little ones you forgot. PowerPoint or PowerPoint list pens if anyone's actually reading. "If you forget August again, I'm reporting you to accounting." Kidding? Mostly. Each note was a wink, a trace of her presence, and a quiet declaration. "I see you. And I know you're testing me." Ethan never responded, but he started waiting for them. He found himself wondering, why does a night shift janitor write like a computer science professor? Why is every message both witty and profound? And why does it make him smile? One night, he decided to stay late on purpose. His office lights stayed on, fingers lazily tapping the keyboard while his ears listened for the sound of wheels rolling down the hallway. At exactly 2 a.m., the soft hum of a cleaning cart passed by, then stopped at his door. It opened gently. Leela stepped in, her eyes wide when she saw him sitting there. She froze. "Oh, sorry. I thought no one was here." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He just looked at her. Really looked, for the first time. "What are you planning to fix tonight?" he asked. Leela blushed. "I was just going to clean the glass doors." He nodded slightly and leave another sticky note. She pressed her lips together. "You noticed? I'm not blind, and not entirely humorless." He leaned back in his chair. "Every note you left was correct and amusing." Leela shrugged. "I just thought the mistakes were kind of funny." "You know, you've been teaching me things, don't you?" Leela gave a soft smile. "I doubt a CEO like you needs advice from someone who mops floors. Advice can come from anywhere, unless someone's too arrogant to listen." They fell silent for a moment. Then Ethan said quietly, "I used to think I was the smartest person in the room, and now I'm not so sure," he admitted. "Seems like this room might have someone smarter." Leela was taken aback, then met his gaze directly. "I don't want compliments. I want a chance." The words shot like an arrow, clear, firm, unflinching. Not begging, not flattering. No dancing around it. Ethan nodded, slowly. "I'll think about it," she nodded back. "Good. Now if you'll excuse me, I've got glass to clean." She did leave. Just like that, leaving behind an Ethan Blackwell, who, for the first time in years, couldn't concentrate on a single line of code. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He reopened every file she had fixed, reread every sticky note, every sharp, playful line, and he started to feel something. Not just admiration for her, intelligence, but for the way she never asked for anything, only did the work. No boasting, no timidity. She just did it with a quiet dignity of someone who had learned through blood and tears. That morning, the atmosphere at the Blue Crescent Hotel was unusually buzzing. One of the largest hotel and tech industry conferences was underway, a high-profile event co-hosted by Ethan Blackwell, drawing hundreds of CEOs, engineers, investors, and top-tier experts from across the country. Leela stood in the employee lounge, buttoning her uniform shirt. Today, she'd been assigned to assist behind the scenes in the main conference hall. No mopping floors, no scrubbing toilets, just refilling drinks, wiping tables, taking out trash. Lighter tasks, but ones where she'd be seen. She didn't like it, but she needed the extra money, and she knew Ethan had approved the support staff list for today. She didn't say it aloud, but her heart stirred. Was he trying to let her accidentally overhear something? The conference hall was packed. Bright lights, expensive suits, and designer dresses. High-end colognes blending into a suffocatingly elegant atmosphere. Ethan took the stage, presenting his new integrated hotel management project. The audience was locked in his sharp words. Bold ideas and unmistakable command over the room. Lila stood in the corner, balancing a tray of coffee, her eyes never leaving him. That cold man now looked different to her. No longer just a distant CEO, but someone who had read every single sticky note she left with quiet appreciation. After the presentation, the crowd moved to the lounge area to network, shake hands, and, of course, talk about artificial intelligence, profit optimization, and the kind of things Lila once dreamed of being part of. A gray-haired man in a perfectly tailored suit, Dr. Howard Langston, famously known as a pioneer of management. Theory was chatting with a group of young engineers. I've said it before. He laughed loudly. Today's engineers learn from YouTube and Stack Overflow and think they're experts. Ridiculous. No credentials, no structure, just a mess of random knowledge. The group laughed with him. Let me tell you, he went on, a company I once consulted nearly hired a nanny just because she fixed a few lines of code. A nanny. What's next? A pizza delivery guy writing blockchain protocols. The laughter swelled even louder. Lila tightened her grip on the coffee tray. Ethan, standing a few feet away, heard it too. His gaze darkened. But before he could react, something happened. Lila stepped forward, pretending to walk by with the coffee, and then a perfectly accidental slip. Oops. Cup of hot coffee landed squarely on the lapel of Dr. Langston's light gray suit. The entire lounge fell silent. Lila gasped, playing the clumsy staff role to perfection. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm terribly clumsy. Maybe I should have learned how to carry coffee from YouTube. Her tone was featherlight but razor-sharp. Ethan nearly laughed. He raised a hand to his mouth, coughing discreetly to hide his grin. Dr. Langston froze. Stepping back, coffee soaking into his suit, face flushing red. You. I'll clean it up right away, Lila said, as she bent to grab a towel. Then, almost as an afterthought, and if not, maybe I can learn how to remove stains using artificial intelligence. After that incident, the networking hour turned. Oddly quiet, no one dared joke about unqualified people again. Ethan approached Lila while she stood in a corner, pretending to wipe tables. No one noticed, but he spoke just loud enough for her to hear. You just silenced a 300-person conference with 1 cup of coffee. Lila didn't look at him, still focused on wiping. You're not firing me, are you? No? He paused. I'm actually thinking about a promotion. She gave a small laugh. Promoting the girl who spilled coffee on a renowned expert. Not for the spill, but because you just stood up for millions of people like you. Lila stopped. For the first time, she turned to look at him. Do you know why I really started? Learning to code. Ethan shook his head. Because I was tired of being looked down on for my circumstances. I wanted something no one could take away: intelligence. Something that doesn't require a university logo to be valid. He gave a small nod. I get that. They stood in silence for a moment. Then he said, next week, I'm starting an advanced AI systems working group. I want you there. She narrowed her eyes. In what role? Field advisor. Someone who understands the system from the ground up. Lila laughed softly. You call that a promotion? It's better than sticking post-it notes on my screen every night, isn't it? She didn't answer, but her lips curled ever so slightly after that day. The image of the girl who spilled coffee on the professor circulated quietly among the hotel staff like a legendary tale. No one dared ask about it. But everyone remembered the calm look on Lila's face as she wiped his suit. As for Ethan, he no longer saw Lila as a mystery, but as an irreplaceable part of a system he thought he already understood best. Friday, the start of the holiday weekend. Every room across the Blue Crescent hotel chain was fully booked. VIP guest list was stacked. Business executives, artists, politicians. Even a surprise visit from a famous reality TV star. The hallways buzzed with energy. Staff hurried back and forth. Phones rang non-stop. In the hotel's technical control room, the AI-based booking system dashboard began flashing warning signals. 9:17 a.m., first alert appeared. Processing delay. Detected room sync AI, not responding. At first, the engineering team assumed it was just a minor data transmission hiccup. But within 30 minutes, the entire system began to glitch. Over 700 guests were en route, and the room statuses had disappeared. The management panel showed incorrect names, duplicated room numbers, even erased payment data. And then 10:05 a.m., the entire booking system crashed. Chaos erupted. Guests couldn't check in. Staff had no idea who was staying where. Smart. Room locks wouldn't open. Automated lighting in VIP suites failed to activate. Guests shouted, demanded answers. Ethan stormed into the control room, his expression like ice. 7 engineers sat inside, drenched in sweat, none daring to lift their heads. "How long?" he asked, voice sharp as a blade. 15 minutes. "The whole system's offline. We can't restore it from the backups," one engineer replied. "We're trying to locate the cause, but the log files are too dense." Ethan clenched his fists. "Shut down all AI protocols. Switch to manual." "We tried, but the AI, it's locked out access." "Locked out?" "Yes. It's like it's auto-reacting to the failure blocking us." Ethan stared at the screen. The system he'd invested $250 million into, touted as the future of hospitality, was now actively fighting the company it was built to serve. Lila was mopping the lounge area when she overheard the murmurs. "They can't check in. The keycard locks aren't working. The whole system's down. And they just launched it last week." She froze. A question formed in her mind, simple and sharp. Why? She set the mop aside and quickly walked toward the tech control room, a place Ethan had allowed her into a few times during previous system tests. She knocked. No answer. Without hesitation, she pushed the door open. Everyone turned to look, including Ethan. "What are you doing here?" One engineer frowned. Lila ignored him. She looked straight at Ethan. "Give me 5 minutes." "No. One can do anything in 5 minutes," someone muttered. Ethan studied her. "You see something?" "Not yet. But I need the raw logs. And access to the parallel data flow architecture." The room went silent. "You know how to access that?" a younger engineer asked, stunned. Lila didn't respond. She had already sat at a secondary console, her fingers flying across the keyboard, like she'd done it 100 times before. Her eyes scanned the logs. Data layers stacked on top of one another, resource metrics peaking, and then she found it. The behavioral prediction module is sending simultaneous requests from 7 separate nodes, she said quickly. They think they're helping, but they're actually consuming all available RAM and creating a feedback storm, a never-ending response loop. "We didn't catch that," someone whispered. "Because you were looking on the surface. I looked in the shadow streams, the stuff A usually hides to optimize reporting." Ethan watched her silently. He knew she was right. Restore cache from before 9 a.m. Kill all behavior module nodes. "I'll handle the manual reset," Lila instructed, eyes never leaving the screen. Ethan turned to the team. "Do what she says." 10:43 a.m. System began recovery. 10:57 a.m. Doors opened. Manual check-ins with partial AI support resumed. Guests started settling in. 11:13 a.m. Full system restoration. All functions returned to normal. The room let out a collective breath. One of the senior engineers muttered, "If she hadn't come in, we would have been finished." Ethan looked at Lila, now standing up, wiping sweat from her brow. Her bangs were damp, but her eyes still burned with clarity. "You just saved the company." "Again?" "No," Lila replied. "Ha, just cleaned up. This time, digital trash." A beat of silence, then laughter broke out across the room. Even Ethan. Laughter, real laugh, for the first time in months. He stepped toward her. "What do you want?" She met his gaze. "Not a bonus. Not a title. I want full system access and a place on the core design team." Ethan nodded. "You've got it. Starting now." Lila nodded back. She didn't smile, but her eyes said it all. That day, Lila came home later than usual. Jamie had fallen asleep on the couch, his math book still open. She placed a hand gently on his shoulder and whispered, "I don't know where this will lead, but today I took another step." She smiled, not because she'd finally been recognized, but because, for the first time, an entire multi-million-dollar system had come to a halt to wait for the girl who used to mop its floors to speak. The hotel had returned to its normal rhythm after the historic system failure. But for Ethan, something not normal was happening. He found himself waiting. Not for reports, not for stock prices to rise, but for the sight of a small figure walking past the hallway, pushing a cleaning cart, or slipping into the tech room to check logs. Ethan Blackwell, the man who once said, "I only trust data, not feelings," was now sitting in his office, staring at the screen not for bugs, but hoping for a message from a former janitor. Lila had declined to leave the night shift. She had the right to. After saving the system twice, Ethan had offered her a permanent role on the AI design team, with daytime hours and an engineer's salary. But she had simply smiled. "Nights are quieter. I think more clearly when the world's asleep." He didn't push, he understood. But each night, when the clock struck 2 a.m., he would hear the soft roll of a cleaning cart pass by his office. And sometimes a sticky note would appear, not to fix bugs, but to drop quiet thoughts. Silence is a form of data, just harder to interpret. If no one understands you, rewrite the input. Sometimes I think systems are harder than people. But then again, sometimes not. Saturday night, Ethan stayed late again, not for work, but because he knew Lila would pass by, and she did. She paused when she saw him sitting beneath the warm yellow lamp. No screens were on, just an old printout, a code snippet from last week in his hand. "You're still awake?" she asked, softly. "Awake and thinking about a piece of code I don't understand," he replied. "What kind of code keeps a CEO up at night?" "The kind written on a sticky note. No clear syntax, but it's been on my mind." Lila smiled gently and stepped inside. "I didn't leave anything tonight," she said. "No bugs, no philosophy. That's okay. You can just say it out loud." She looked at him for a moment, then sat across from him. "You once asked me what I wanted," she said. "I told you, access. Now I want something else." "What is it?" "To keep the line." He fell quiet. "Between me, a Janitor, and you, a CEO," she continued, "I need to know that I'm valued for my skills. Not because you feel something." Ethan's fists clenched slightly. "And what do you think I'm feeling?" "Don't look at me like a boss. Your tone changes. I've noticed." He lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "I'm not angry. I'm scared." He looked upon us. "Scared of what?" "Scared of being the prize. Like, oh, the smart girl saved the company. She deserves love. I don't want pity. And I definitely don't want a romance born out of gratitude." Ethan stood, walking slowly until they stood face to face, so close they could hear each other's breathing. "I don't pity you," he said. "I respect you." I've learned from you, and I feel more like myself around you than I ever have." Lila inhaled deeply. "Ethan," he hesitated. "May I try?" She didn't answer, but she didn't step away either. Ethan leaned in softly, slowly, like approaching the edge of something fragile. And then their lips touched. Just for a second, Lila pulled back. She stepped away, her eyes still gentle, but her voice firm. "Not yet." Ethan nodded. "I understand. Maybe someday, when I'm sure I'm not just the girl who fixed the bug. Then I'll wait." She smiled faintly. "You're not good at waiting." "But I'm learning." That night, Lila returned home in silence. Jamie was fast asleep, curled up just like he used to when he was little. She sat by the window, gazing at the city lights, holding an unused sticky note in her hand. She wrote, "Not every connection runs right away. Some need time to stabilize." The network? She didn't leave it on Ethan's desk. She kept it for herself. 3 weeks after the major system failure, the media began picking up stories about the miraculous recovery of the Blue Crescent's AI booking platform. Headlines praised the turnaround as if magic had been involved. Stock prices saw a slight rebound. Tech magazines ran articles like the incredible comeback of Ethan Blackwell. But Ethan wasn't happy, because the person who had made that comeback possible wasn't mentioned at all. He could change that. Monday, 9 a.m., the main conference room at Blackwell Hospitality headquarters. Lila walked in, wearing her usual plain coat, holding a worn notebook. Ethan was waiting for her along with the PR team and the head of communications. "We'd like to have you on stage at next week's Future of AI in Hospitality conference," Ethan began, as the architect behind Room Sync's revival. Allow. Froze on stage. "Me. Yes." In front of about 500 people, CEOs, investors, major tech companies. One of the PR staff chimed in, "We want to tell your story from night janitor to the genius who saved the system. It's inspirational. Could even make you Wonder Woman of the Year in Business Chronicle." Lila looked at them, then turned to Ethan. "Why?" Ethan answered plainly, "Because you deserve it." She nodded slightly, then asked, "What about them?" All eyes turned to her. The ones who laughed when someone without a degree fixed a multi-million-dollar system. "Will they celebrate me for being good or just because I'm unexpected?" Silence filled the room. "I don't want to be a symbol," she said slowly. "I'm not inspiration. I'm an engineer, even if I don't have the certificate." The head of PR tried to pivot. "We just want to share a powerful story. That story belongs to me." Lila cut in. "And I'm not ready for it to be edited to fit your narrative." Ethan nodded, not surprised. "What if I revise the proposal?" he asked. "No stage, no spotlight. Just your name listed officially as part of the Room Sync team." Lila thought. "For a moment, I agree. But no personal story, no photos, no interviews. Just a name, just a name, just a name," she confirmed. Because sometimes a name is a statement that someone doesn't need pity to be acknowledged. The following week, at the conference, during the Room Sync development presentation, there was a brief moment that most people overlooked. In the list of developers, engineers, and advisors, the very bottom of the slide appeared a tiny line of text: Lila Thompson, Field Data and Systems. Integrity Advisor. No applause, no dramatic reveal. But Ethan Mudd's presentation paused. For just a moment, when he reached that line, he said nothing more. But in his eyes was an unspoken thank you. After the conference, Lila continued her night shifts as usual. No one at the hotel knew she had saved the entire system. She was still the girl with the cleaning cart and a single earbud always in place. One night, walking past Ethan's office, she noticed the door was slightly ajar. He had fallen asleep. At his desk, A sticky note had slipped to the floor. She bent down to pick it up. It read handwritten, a small name, but one that carries a revolution. She smiled. She didn't leave a new note that night, but for the first time, she left a tiny dot in the corner of his desk. Her reply: she wasn't ready for the spotlight just yet, but she was ready to exist. Not as someone discovered, but as someone who had chosen to step into that world on her own terms. It was a quiet Sunday morning. Lila sat with Jamie at the small park near their home. The two siblings rarely had time together during the Dela worked nights, and Jamie had school and a part-time job at the local bookstore. Today was an exception. Jamie had brought a book, and Lila had brought a sandwich she made at 5 a.m. after her shift ended. If you became a daytime engineer, you'd have your weekends free, Jamie said, taking a bite of the sandwich. Lila smiled. Too many people in the daytime. I prefer the quiet of night. And you prefer Ethan Blackwell too, don't you? She looked up. What did you say? Kami shrugged playfully. I see the way you check your phone every time it buzzes. The way you switch earbuds whenever a message pops up from E. Lila laughed. You're only 17, but you're more observant than most adults. Jamie laid back on the grass, covering his eyes with one hand. I'm not observing. I'm hoping. Hoping that you'll have someone not because you need them, but because you deserve them. But that peaceful afternoon shattered like glass. Lila's phone buzzed relentlessly while she napped on the couch. A frantic voice came through. Jamie nearly drowned during a school field trip. He's in emergency care at St. Miriam Hospital. She rushed out barefoot, her whole world spinning. The last images from the park, his smile, the book, that one sentence looped through her mind like a broken video. At the hospital, Jamie was undergoing resuscitation. Luckily, someone had found him in time, but he had taken in a lot of water and was now unconscious. Lila stood outside the ICU, her hands freezing cold. A nurse said, he's on temporary oxygen support. We're monitoring him closely. Will need a family member to sign for 24-hour observation. That's fine. I'm here, she whispered. But a few hours later, her phone buzzed again. 12 missed calls. From Ethan, from the room sync team. Tomorrow was the big test for the new AI module. Everyone needed her. Lila sank to the hospital floor, knees pulled tight to her chest. She had never felt so small. That night, Ethan showed up at the hospital. No one had called him. No one had told him. But he knew because she hadn't messaged. And ever since they met, silence from Lila meant something was wrong. He walked into the ICU wing and found her curled up in a chair, her eyes hollow. He didn't ask anything, just sat down beside her. Minutes passed before she whispered, "My little brother, he's all I have left." Ethan nodded quietly. "I know. If I lose him, I don't know what I'd keep fighting for." Silence lingered. Ethan stared ahead at the glass door, where Jamie's small body lay inside. "Lila," he said softly, "I'm not here as a CEO. I'm here because I need to know what I can do for you." She turned to him. "You don't have to do anything. Not because I have to, because I want to." Her voice cracked. "Could you," she hesitated, "just stay till he wakes up?" "Of course," he nodded. She turned away, hiding the moisture in her eyes. They didn't talk much that night. Ethan placed a warm coffee next to her. When she shivered, he gently draped his coat over her shoulders. Not romantic, not performative. Just one human sitting beside another right when it mattered most. Near dawn. The doctor stepped out. "Jamie is responding to medication. If there are no complications, he should wake up within a few hours." Lila broke down, not with sobs, not with wails, just quiet tears, like all the years she had endured in silence, finally had permission to fall. Ethan said nothing. He reached Out his hand, Lila took it. That morning, when Jamie opened his eyes, the first person he saw was his sister. The second was a tall man standing silently in the corner, his face tired, eyes sunken from lack of sleep, yet still calm as ever. Jamie gave a weak smile. "Mr. Ethan." Ethan smiled back. "Hey there. My sister's kind of a handful, huh?" Jamie joked, winking. Ethan nodded. "I've noticed." Lila walked Ethan out to the hallway. The early sunlight streamed through the frosted windows, casting a quiet glow between them. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. Ethan looked at her. "Then don't. You didn't come out of obligation, right?" "No. I came because I couldn't imagine you going through this alone." She lowered her gaze. "And what about after this?" Ethan hesitated, then answered, "I won't ask. You two trust me right away. But if you'll let me, I'll be here whenever you need." She looked at him, truly looked, not as a CEO, not as the man behind the spotlight, but as someone simply choosing to stay. Jamie recovered faster than expected. After 3 days in the hospital, he was sitting up, eating on his own, and true to form, teasing his sister again. "Don't look at me like I'm in my final days." Jamie grimaced as Lila carefully spooned porridge into his mouth. "I'll be back on the field in no time." "Say that again, and I'll cook chicken porridge for a whole week," Lila replied sternly. They both burst into laughter. They laughed, but deep inside, Lila still carried a quiet fear. Everything had happened too fast. In just one moment, she had almost lost everything. But more terrifying than the event itself was the helplessness. She realized she could fix a $250 million system, but couldn't guarantee the safety of the one person she loved most. That night, after Jamie had fallen asleep, Ethan came to the hospital as he had every night since. He brought 2 cups of hot tea, no coffee, because he remembered Lila once told him, "At night, I prefer something lighter. Helps the heart stay still." They sat together on the bench at the far end of the hallway, not speaking at first. The silence was quiet but strangely warm. Then Ethan said, "Have you ever wondered if I weren't a CEO? It's just a regular person. Would you see me differently?" Lila turned to him, silent for a moment, then asked back, "What about you? If I didn't know how to code, didn't fix the system, would you still be here?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Yes, really. When you gave that sandwich to Jamie at the park, I was watching from a distance. In that moment, you weren't an engineer. You weren't a hero. Just a sister. And I've never seen someone love someone that much." Lila stared down at her tea, her voice soft. "Ethan, I'm grateful for you, for everything. But I don't want to love because I'm thankful. I don't want anyone to love me just because I saved them. I used to think love was a reward for what you've endured, but now I'm not so sure." Ethan nodded gently. "Real love doesn't come as a reward. It comes when someone sees you at your weakest and chooses to stay." She smiled, light as the breeze. "You read self-help books now?" "No," he replied. "I learned that from you." A few days later, Jamie was discharged. Lila took 2 more days off to care for him at home. That morning, as she prepared breakfast, Jamie called her over. "Sis, sit down." She raised an eyebrow. "Why so serious?" "I'll only say this once. You can fix an AI system, rescue an entire hotel chain, even repair a washing machine without a manual. But you can't fix your heart if you keep living like you owe someone." Something Lila froze. Jamie continued, "Love isn't repayment. Love is living. If Ethan loves you and you feel something too, don't turn it into a transaction." She didn't respond, but something in her eyes shifted. That afternoon, she returned to the hotel, not for the night shift, not as a behind-the-scenes staff member, but in a simple white blouse, hair neatly tied, and a name tag that read, Lila Thompson, Field Systems Advisor, Room Syncathon, was in a meeting. She didn't wait. She left a note. Not a yellow sticky note, but a small handwritten letter carefully folded. Ethan, maybe it took me years to believe in myself, but you were the first person who made me feel seen, not because of what I could do, but because of who I am. And if you still want to, I'm ready to try, not as CEO and engineer, not as benefactor and the grateful one, but as two people building something together. From the truest place we have, Lila. When Ethan walked out and read the letter, he didn't call her. He went straight down to the tech floor, where Lila stood with the developer team reviewing the latest upgrade test. They spotted each other. Through the sound of keystrokes, overhead lights, and scattered instructions, Ethan didn't say a word. He walked up, took her hand in front of everyone, and Lila didn't pull away. No shame, no hiding. For the first time, she let the world see what she chose, not out of need, but because she wanted to. 6 months later, the nameplate Lila Thompson, Field System Advisor, still hung on the tech floor of the Blue Crescent Hotel, but the office was empty. No one saw Lila on the night shift anymore. No more yellow sticky notes. No more girl with one headphone in, mopping the floor while writing code in her mind, because Lila had chosen a different path. A small house on the eastern outskirts of the city, once an old printer repair shop, had been transformed into a warm, humble space called Switch Lab, a place to reprogram yourself. Not a high-tech innovation hub, not a school in the formal sense. Here, Lila taught programming to people without degrees, night janitors, security guards, delivery workers, single moms, and kids like Jamie, who once believed dreams were reserved only for the wealthy. Ethan was the silent investor, no strings attached. But his name didn't appear in any document, signage, or syllabus. Because he said, "This isn't something I built. I just tightened a few bolts," he showed up on weekends with fresh pastries, fixed windows, swept the yard. Sometimes he stood quietly at the back of the classroom, watching Lila explain Python optimization in the simplest, clearest way. He used to build AI worth hundreds of millions. Now he was learning to listen to dreams one, small one at a time. One Saturday afternoon, after the final session of their first course, Lila took Jamie, now a teaching assistant at Switch Lab, to a nearby bakery. "What do you want to eat?" she asked. "The one with the white frosting?" Jamie replied, then glanced at her. "But you're acting weird today." "Weird how?" "You're smiling too much." Lila laughed. "Is that a bad thing?" "No," Jamie said. "It's just I've never seen you smile for yourself before. Not for someone else, not for recognition, just because you're happy." That evening, Ethan asked Lila to meet him at a small park. There, no one recognized him as the millionaire CEO who once graced magazine covers. He wore a simple t-shirt and held a small box. "You know, this used to be a parking lot," Lila said, looking around. "Yeah," Ethan smiled. "But now it's the place we choose to start again." He opened the box. No giant diamond ring, just a slim silver band engraved with tiny letters. "Begin again, L&T." No orchestra, no media, no wedding gown. She asked, eyes sparkling. "No, just me and the woman who rewrote an entire system, then rewrote my heart." She stayed silent for a moment, then nodded. They married a month later, right at Switch Lab. No stage, no celebrity guests, just students, neighbors, Jamie and a handful of engineers from the Blue Crescent who snuck out of their shift to attend. Lila wore a simple white dress, her hair loosely tied, no bouquet in hand. Ethan wore a gray suit he picked himself for the first time without a stylist. During the ceremony, the officiant asked, "Do you have anything you'd like to say to the bride?" Ethan turned, took her hand, and instead of a love declaration, he simply said, I promise not to save you, 'cause you've never needed saving. All I ask is to walk beside you every day as an ordinary man lucky enough to be chosen by you." Lila smiled. There were no tears in her eyes, just a quiet light that told everyone watching she was living a life she chose, from the heart. Freely in the years that followed, people still talked about the girl who saved an entire AI system with a mop and a kind of vision no one else had. But for Ethan, the man who once had everything and still felt empty, only one truth stayed. With him, she never needed titles. She never needed a stage. She only needed someone who truly believed she was enough long before the world did. And he, thankfully, had been that someone. Maybe after hearing this story, like me, you'll sit in silence for a little while. Because sometimes miracles don't arrive on big stages. They come from someone quietly doing what they believe is right. Lila never needed applause to know her worth. She only needed someone perceptive enough to truly see her without conditions and love, if it can be named. Perhaps it's simply when someone chooses to stay, not because you're brilliant, but because you're simply you. Thank you for staying with us through this story. I hope somewhere in your world, there's someone willing to stay too, just like Ethan did. If you felt something in your heart today, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Snail Story will be back with more slow, gentle stories made just for you.